5 years out from retirement is where I want to start. It's the window that almost nobody uses well because it sounds like it's still a long way away, and it's not. So that's where we want to start this episode of Pre-Retirement Navigated. Hi, I'm Will Hoffman, founder and president of Hoffman Wealth Management. I'm your host for Pre-Retirement Navigated. It's where we're going to talk about all of the things that go on in the 5 years leading up to retirement. We're going to bounce around. We started with our kickoff episode and talking about the big flips that happen. If you have any questions or want to check that out, the link will be in the show notes. And we're going to talk about year 5 now, the big decisions that you have to make. We're going to go through each year, and then we're going to get granular into all of these decisions throughout this series and throughout this podcast. And I'm excited to see where this podcast goes. I know seems like there's an infinite amount of decisions that need to be made in the 5 years leading up to retirement. So I'm excited to see what we get to talk about. I'm going to admit to you, though, I'm a little nervous. Typically on our other podcast, Wealth on the Move, I have a guest, so I have someone else to talk to. And for this, I'm by myself. So hopefully it goes well. Bryn is behind the camera and at the computer. So if we do have any questions about statistics or things, she's going to be there to help us out. But I'm winging it. So hopefully I'm doing a good job. If I am, please feel free to like or subscribe to wherever you get your podcast. Love for you to share these episodes with folks that are going through this process, maybe alongside of you, that this can help and you can get some insight. If you do have any questions about anything you hear, please feel free to reach out to our office. That link will be in the show note. You can always schedule a discovery call with Hoffman Wealth Management. That link will be down there. Also, we do have a checklist, a pre-retirement checklist that you can download. That way, if you do have questions, you can see where you are in this 5-year process, what still needs to be done. And that way it gives you that tack list for where to go. But I'm excited to get into year 5, the decisions that we need to make. So let's get into this episode of Pre-Retirement Navigated. So that trap, 5 years out, still seems like a long time. 5 years seems like an eternity, especially if you're driving to work every day or going to a job that you cannot wait to leave and get to the beach or the golf course or wherever you decide that you're going to spend your retirement. 5 years can seem like an eternity. But when it comes to making these decisions, it's not. So we're going to get into these decisions. I've watched this play out over 23 years of my career. It's not a time to just skate through and ignore. It's a time to do some real work on when it's time or when you're going to retire. And that's the first decision that needs to be made. When are you going to retire? It's scary. Being ambiguous lets you off the hook if you maybe think you haven't saved enough or if you're nervous about what the market's been doing. Saying maybe 5 years or when I feel like retiring or when it feels right, or we'll see what that feels like in a few more years. That ambiguity can feel good, but you have to put a stake in the ground. You have to make a decision before a decision gets made for you, whether that's health concerns or your employer decides that it's time for a downsizing. Make the decision. And here's why that's important. I know it's scary, but it's important because it keeps you in control. It allows you to control the rest of the variables that are going to go on over the next 5 years, making that decision. Now, you may make a decision to retire 3 years from now. You still have to go back and do some of this work that you need to do in year 5 and year 4. But putting the stake in the ground and making the decision is so incredibly vital. I can't express that enough, how important it is to get that stake in the ground and start to understand when you're going to retire. The next decision that's so important is, what is retirement going to cost? You may have no idea. You're not alone. Most folks don't have any idea. It's so important to run a budget for retirement. And it could look very similar to your budget now, but run a budget for retirement. And we like to have our clients run 2 budgets. First, what do you want to do in retirement? Let's run that budget. What does travel look like? What does spending look like? What do the vehicles that you want to drive look like? What does all this look and feel like in retirement? Running those budgets are so important. Now, the second budget is, what do I need in retirement? The roof, the electricity, the food, car payments, health insurance. We need to have 2 budgets. And here's why. Ideally, you never have to just revert to the budget that you need. But we know over the course of history, the market does not go straight up and to the right. There are going to be things that happen. There's going to be market disruption. There is going to be health disruptions. There potentially, if you're retiring as a couple, one of you may pass away way earlier than expected. We want to know what budget we need to ultimately get back to make sure you're still able to live a comfortable life. It may not be the life that you want every month of retirement, but we want to know what that looks and feels like so we can plan for both. Ultimately, we love to help people plan for the retirement that they want. That's why we've been busting our humps for 30 or 40 years, so that we finally get to enjoy ourselves and get to do the things we want to do without having to worry about a time clock. But we want to make sure we can get back to a budget that is what we need if we have to go that route. So understanding what it costs is so important. Listen, I know that budget isn't fun. It's not fun for a financial advisor to do at home either. But getting back to what that budget is in both of those two categories, or those two budget frameworks, is so, so important. So get the budget done, do the hard, unfun, unsexy work, and make sure that you get those budgets. You understand what retirement is going to cost. And then run the projection. Find out how much this is going to cost, and when I'm going to retire, can I afford it? It's the decision people dodge the longest. And I know why. You may get bad news, but 5 years out from retirement is a better time to get bad news than the day after you retire. If it is bad news, find out 5 years before you retire. Give yourself time to fix it. Maybe you have to wait 6 years to retire instead of 5, but it's better to find that out with 5 years to go than it is to find out on day 2, I didn't save enough. Now what do I do? And you're trying to call your boss and see if he'll take you back. So find out well ahead of time. 5 years, listen, I'd like to know 10 years. 5 years to me still doesn't seem like enough runway, but find out what it's going to cost so that projection needs to change. If your budgeting needs to change, if your investment style needs to change, if how much you're saving needs to change, with a 5-year runway before it's too late. So run that projection. If you need help with that projection, again, reach out to us. It's something we do with folks every day. You have been driving hard on your career highway for decades. Foot on the gas, eyes straight ahead, on your way to retirement. But when you hit that 5-year stretch before retirement, every pothole seems a little bit deeper. Every traffic jam seems to last a little bit longer. Every construction zone seems to be a little bit more dangerous. And every change in lanes seems to be a bit more aggravating. You are not alone. That is exactly why we designed the navigation formula as our proprietary process at Hoffman Wealth Management, helping you navigate the time before retirement when all of these things start to stack up and these decisions start to seem a little bit more important. As you're listening to the Pre-Retirement Navigated podcast, if there's something that you have a question about, please feel free to book a discovery call with our office. The link is in the show notes, and you can always call and ask any questions you have about something you hear here. Now, back to the Pre-Retirement Navigated podcast. The next thing that you need to do and the decisions that need to be made are when it comes to risk. Now, if you've been saving in your 401k, or even if you've maybe worked with another financial advisor, you may have gone through a risk tolerance profile. And what that risk tolerance profile really is gauging is how much risk you like. I don't know who likes risk. How much risk you like, how much risk feels comfortable, how much risk you can handle without getting sick to your stomach, or how much risk you can handle without losing sleep at night. That's what those are designed for. That all changes when you get ready to retire. It isn't always about how much risk you can handle. It's how much risk you have capacity for. And they're two totally different conversations. You may be comfortable with a ton of risk. You may be comfortable watching the volatility of the stock market and never batting an eye and never flinching. But do you need that? Does your portfolio have the capacity for it? Does your retirement plan have the capacity for that risk? Understanding how much portfolio risk capacity you have to still fund your retirement is a totally different conversation than how much you're comfortable with. And right sizing that risk is so important. And doing it in year 5 allows you to start to alter that risk the closer you get to retirement, because it's been about growth. It's been about accumulation. And quite frankly, we have all heard the phrase risk can equal reward. We may not need that anymore. We may not be able to have that anymore. Your portfolio may be very sensitive to the ups and downs of the market. And we don't want to find out after 2 years of bad market portfolio where you saying, it's going to come back. I'm comfortable with the fact that it may bounce back, but you're pulling money out and you're pulling shares out of the market at a distressed price, that it ruins your portfolio. So again, we don't want you on your phone to your boss 2 years after you're retired, see if he'll take you back or see if there's room to come back in some capacity. We don't want you to have to worry about scrambling at that point. So finding out what your risk capacity is much, much different than what your risk tolerance is. That is the perfect year to do that. We're going to have an entire episode about probably more than one episode about risk tolerance versus risk capacity, because I think back to the financial crisis and folks that maybe retired at the end of 2007 thinking they were comfortable with risk and waking up a year later and the market's down significantly and they've been drawing from that portfolio. That's what we want to try to avoid. And how do we defend our portfolios against sequence of return risk? That's going to be a big conversation and a big component to going into retirement and understanding what your capacity for risk is. The next thing to do is the structural cleanup. The stuff, and again, this is not fun, but making sure beneficiaries are correct. You don't want to get into and deep in the retirement and find out, unfortunately, maybe too late, that you had an ex-spouse listed as a beneficiary on an account. That's not going to be fun for anybody. Maybe fun for the ex-spouse, but it's not going to be fun for anybody. So making sure that all of your beneficiaries are updated, making sure you have your health insurance things figured out, making sure you have powers of attorney and you have estate documents done and put in the right place and trusts considered and all of those things. That becomes so important, making sure your liability coverage is correct, your homeowners, your auto, your umbrella policies, making sure all that gets done. That's the again, it's easy. It's not fun. It's phone calls, it's checking boxes, but going through that can save a lot of nightmares and emergency situations. Making sure you have medical directives, making sure you have a medical and a financial power of attorney well in advance of ever needing it. I can't tell you how many emergency situations we've been through, how uncomfortable it is for everybody, because we want to help. We want to help so bad, but we can't because the documents aren't in place and the law forbids us from being able to help where we want to. So making sure you get those put in place is a vital part of these 5-year and out discussions, because you got to have it done. Again, not fun, not hard, just necessary. So make sure you go through that. Before we're talking about any of the fun stuff, the trips, the golf, the mountain climbing, the cruises, all of that stuff, making sure that these structural things are done is so important. Again, year 5, it may seem like it's a long way away from retirement. It's really not. These 5 years are going to go fast. They're going to creep up. If you have the same sensations I do, time seems to go faster the older we get, and this is going to be no exception to that. So making sure that you're attacking these things well in advance of all the other things we're going to go over in this conversations and get into in year 4 is so important. Again, the retirement checklist is in the link of the show notes. It's a quick and easy download to give you a great barometer of where you stand with all of these things that are necessary. So I encourage you to go in there, download that. If you're seeing more questions that you have, please reach out to our office. It's an easy discovery call, and it's just a consultation. There's no selling. There's no obligation. We don't send you a bill. If you have questions, let's see if we can help you. And then if we need to go deeper or further, we can talk about that as well. But reach out, book a discovery call if you do have questions or if there's anything we can do. This is just a conversation. If there's other things you want to hear from, if you're in this window, I know we have a lot of content coming up, but if you're within this 5-year window, let us know what topics you want us to talk about on this podcast. Put a comment on YouTube, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so it's a great way to tell us what you want to hear. Again, after 23 years in this business, I've seen a lot. I know I haven't seen everything, but If there's things that you want to address, let's address them. I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Pre-Retirement Navigated podcast. Will Hoffman offers investment advice through Private Advisor Group, which is a federally registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult with the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.